OK，欢迎各位家长的到来，然后就是欢迎大家参加 7EDU 的批判性阅读和写作公开课。请大家稍等2分钟的时间，一些家长和孩子们还在陆陆续续进来。我们的公开课会在3:02正式开始。然后您在等待的时间可以关注屏幕下方的 7EDU 的呃 YouTube、Facebook 和 Instagram，随时获得最新最快的教育资讯。
Impact Academy. Since 2014, we've been designing a solution for students around the globe seeking truly empowering academic guidance. The 7EDU Impact Academy, one-stop personalized education solution using interactive technology to teach smart, not hard. 7EDU's state-of-the-art educators empower our students with problem-solving skill sets and tools to unearth their unique intellectual potential. Our students enroll in small group and individual synchronous learning sessions that focus on small groups, high participation, smart progress analysis, modern curricula, experienced and technologically trained teachers, live academic coaches, and on helping each student build their unique learning journey. From reading historical and scientific publications to analyzing classical literature to playful.
Okay, so we are waiting for like some more parents and the kids to join in. So in between, I want to show you guys what is 7EDU to make people understand a little bit better. Okay, so give me 1 sec. Thank you.
Projects in Python programming, public speaking, to applying artificial intelligence and robotics from a young age, to preparing with the best for the most prestigious tests and national competitions. There's no limit to what you'll achieve with us at 7EDU Impact Academy. Dream bigger, reach higher. 7EDU.
All right. Hi, everyone. This is June, and I'm the founder of 7EDU. Welcome to join our open class today. 大家好，非常高兴。This is June, and I'm the founder of 7EDU. Welcome to join our open class today. 大家好。OK，好，那么今天呢，我们会邀请到我们的 Jonathan 老师来给我们讲解我们的 Critical Reading and Writing 的课程。那么这个课程呢，is designed for the students to improve their reading. Yeah, so that's why we want to give the demo class. Yeah. Some of the parents may not speak English. Some of the parents, yes, may. But all the class will be taught in English. That's why I want to just make sure, like, you understand about what the class and what they need, and hope you enjoy it.
All right, thank you everyone for waiting. We're going to get started with the event now. If the person would like to present the slideshow, we can get started today. So thank you all for coming to 780U's Critical Reading and Writing Open Class. We're really excited to have June and Jonathan with us here today to give us a detailed overview on how to learn the best reading and writing skills to prepare for upper level grades and college. So first off, I want to introduce 780U's founder and CEO, June Liu. Could we actually switch to that slide if possible? Awesome. So June is our founder of 780U and our CEO as well, and she's been a teacher for over 15 years now. June is one of the pioneers of K through 12 education, and she has really, her specialty is really understanding that each student learns in a different way. And so June is really able to tailor her way of teaching students by personalizing her education. And now next up, we have Jonathan, who is also here with us today. Jonathan has been teaching a variety of public school classes for over 5 years now and has a lot of experience with working with especially middle school students. And so we are also really excited to have Jonathan here with us today. He's also a UC Davis graduate. And without further ado, I think we can get started with today's event if June or Jonathan wants to take it over.
Thank you very much for the introduction, Anne. Thank you very much, June. Would you mind going to the next slide, please? Whenever you get a chance. So yeah, my name is Jonathan Mao. I'm a UC Davis grad. I got my degree in psychology from there, and then I got my teaching credential and my master's in education from UC Davis about 5 years ago. So I spent the last 5 years teaching in public elementary schools, mainly 6th and 7th grade, but I also taught 3rd and 5th. And so I'm really excited to work with 7EDU and teach our critical reading and writing classes here. So what makes me most excited about critical reading and writing is the overall foundation, like what exactly it is and what it is meant to do. So at the very top, you can see what is CRW, critical reading and writing. The main goal of critical reading and writing is to provide students with the foundational skills necessary to critically read, write, and think, right? These are the three main ways that students can really understand text, right? Read it, and also get their ideas down on paper, and to really show readers, essay graders, teachers, their friends, anybody who is reading the text, why they know what they're talking about, and how they can show that. So we founded CRW based on these 4 tenets of what CRW is. So what CRW is exactly is active engagement with text, first of all, right? So active engagement with text means that you annotate text. You annotate, you write, you work with the text as you're reading it, after you're reading it, before you're reading it, in order to clarify meaning, to connect the text to your personal life, and to quickly find information again when you want to use that information in order to make a point, to make an argument, to make a persuasion, using text as a source of ideas, right? In addition, this active engagement with text is also understanding the writer of the text and the historical context of it. Why is this text important? Why was it influential? Why are we reading it today? Why was Shakespeare important? Why is Socrates important? So understanding this historical context also gives you this background, this idea of why text is important and why you can make your arguments more clear, right, more powerful. When you understand this historical context, you have much more background, right? You have many more ideas to tell people why your arguments are important and why they are the way they are. So that's active engagement with text. And this is in contrast to passive reading of text. So this type of reading is just kind of going through, reading it once, maybe twice, getting some comprehension questions at most sequence, when this happened, when that happened, and that's about it, right? When you passively read text, you may have an idea of what the text was about. You might be able to tell somebody what happened in it, or maybe why it's important, but you're not really understanding it. You can't really use this text to make a clear and concise argument, right? So next, what CRW is analyzing and evaluating information. This means going through thoughtful and deep discussions of the text to fully comprehend all of its textual nuances. Why certain words were used, why certain arguments were used, why are these arguments more effective than using different arguments? So this takes a lot of time with text, right? So this takes many, many readings, many, many discussions, and working together with teachers, students, and parents to understand all the information in a text and how it all leads to one main argument, one main effective argument. In addition, analyzing and evaluating information involves students sharing their own ideas and discussing with other students and with teachers. They can discuss the strengths and weaknesses of their arguments and the strengths and weaknesses of their supporting facts through the text. This kind of discussion of why things are important or why something is strong and something might be weak, this is one of the best ways for students to really see what their peers are writing, where their writing is, and how they can improve based on how other people are improving or struggling, right? So seeing both the positives and the negatives in themselves and their friends and their teachers, all of this kind of works together to make gaining information through text really, really powerful and really, really effective. And then this is in contrast to what CRW is not, which is regurgitating information. This is another very ineffective way of reading text or understanding text. When you regurgitate information, again, this is all like passive reading of the text. You are talking about what happened, when it happened, facts within the text. And in a sense, you might be able to understand what is happening or maybe why it happened, but you're not necessarily understanding or understanding all the arguments in the text. You can say it, but you're not really understanding. It's kind of in one ear, out the other, right? So next, the third point of what CRW is writing from an individual perspective. We really encourage students to write from the perspective that is most important or most engaging to them. That is kind of this thinking part of reading and writing. When students have a clear but also structured choice for their writing, it really improves their critical thinking skills. So for us, we really encourage students to critically think. We give them options, of course, right? Within limitations for students. Within limitations, students can choose their own arguments, find their own information, find their own text, and understand that an argument is written by a person. It's assessed, it's evaluated, it goes through several drafts before it's really presented out to the world in any kind of effective way. So when we write from this individual perspective, when a teacher sets up a very effective classroom environment where students feel comfortable to share their ideas, argue their ideas, and have polite, friendly, intelligent discussions with their peers and with teachers, this all works together to really improve critical thinking skills, these skills that we need to become effective adults, to become effective writers in the future, and to write about what's really important to us. Now, this writing from an individual perspective is in contrast to writing from a set perspective. Now, what this means is you are really just given one idea, right? You're given the idea, you're told to write about it. It might not be that important to you. For a lot of students, maybe for a lot of adults too, you've probably been given a kind of prompt to write about. It might not be very interesting. And there are times when you do have to write about what might not be interesting to you to make an argument for something you might not be engaged in. But those times should be few and far between, right? When we write about something we are engaged in, when we write about something that we do have investment in, when we have spent time working on, all this works together to make us more effective writers, thinkers, analyzers, just more effective adults, more educated adults, right? Lastly, what CRW is small group active student discussion, right? So our classes are capped at about 13 students. I think at most I've seen is 15. This kind of small group discussion is in contrast to these large groups, right? Sometimes classes have 30 plus students, 40 plus students. If you're looking at, these bigger lectures, maybe 200 to 500 students. In that kind of environment, it's almost impossible for students to share their ideas and really be heard by everyone in the class. And it's also really impossible for teachers to kind of give students that individual feedback, the individual attention, to even keep track of which students are in the class and who's been participating. We try to limit our classes to a small group so that teachers can really give effective feedback, discussions, and to really facilitate classroom ideas, right, through Zoom. With that, before we move on, do you have any questions on this slide about what CRW is, but what it's not, how there are so many different ways we have looked at making this class most effective for all students of all ages? If not, thank you very much. Please go to the next slide. Good. Thank you very much. So what is the class structure? How is CRW set up to really make sure the classes run smoothly and efficiently, right? We want to give you the most bang for your buck. Why would you want to take our class over any other class? So the class structure, we've seen that between 1 hour to 1.5 hours per session is most effective for student learning, right? Past that, students kind of tend to check out, or they start like it takes too much brain power. It's just too much to really comprehend in one sitting, and we've really tailored this to depend on the grade level that CRW is in. So our CRW classes are broken down into grade levels, right? So grades 2 and 3 is our first level, 3 and 4 is the next, and I'll get into more of that in later on. But for right now, these 1 to 1.5 hour sessions, we found to be the perfect amount of time to have deep, thoughtful discussions without being overwhelming for students. The next point, our classes are staggered between reading in one class, then writing in another. So these reading sections are broken down to 3 main types. The first section is content review of a specific reading strategy. These could be using graphic organizers or making predictions, finding keywords, inferring meaning from text. So once we have these specific reading strategies, that makes reading any kind of text, from nonfiction to fiction to narrative writing, and any kind of reading that we can do, it's more effective when we have these strategies to read more clearly and effectively. The second type of reading class that we have are application exercises and reading excerpt questions. These are commonly known as test prep. And while this is not a main part of our CRW classes, we do understand that taking tests is really important for students. We really understand that when you can effectively read test questions and gain information from them quickly in order to answer them correctly and quickly to do well on a test, that's what really helps students move forward as well, to really demonstrate that they know something quickly and knowledgeably. So last thing for our reading section is a discussion of the class readings, analysis, instruction, and reading for meaning. So that was kind of my point of getting into the active engagement with text and analyzing and evaluating information. When we stop, slow down, and read text carefully with very specific strategies, with discussions between students and teachers, using annotations, and again, these discussions, understanding the historical context, we can really get into the meat of reading, why this reading is important, why what we're doing is important, and to make writing about this text honestly more fun, right? Because when you can understand what you're doing, when you understand the history of it, then you can write most effectively. And our second part of our writing class, our critical reading and writing class, is writing, right? What exactly do we do with the writing, right? We can also break this down into three different sections for writing, right? This is content review of specific essay types. You've probably written different types of essays throughout school. They ask you to write maybe an argumentative, a narrative essay, a informational essay. What we do with this type of writing is we really break this kind of essay effective, what teachers are looking for in these essays, what evaluators are looking for. So we make this writing achievable, understandable for all students, right? Our second point for writing is collaboration breakdown and analysis of source text and prompts. So when we are breaking down and analyzing source texts and prompts, we're understanding what the question is asking of us. And when we understand what the question is asking of us, we can answer that question, right, more effectively. When we can, again, analyze the information and understand what it's asking of us, our writing becomes a lot more clear, a lot more concise, and a lot more effective. It really helps you do well when you are answering questions. Lastly, for the writing section, we also give oral and written feedback on student writing. The oral feedback is usually done in class when you submit any kind of writing to us. Teachers, we have time to all read what you wrote and give feedback, typically anonymously, right? In class, we don't try to call anybody out in our classes. We point out what was good about the text and what could be improved. And so you can see your peers, right? How they're writing, and you can compare it to your own. You can see what makes something effective, what makes something weak. And as a whole, as a group, teacher and students, we can move forward and improve based on what we already know, what we already understand. So with that, thank you very much. Can you move on to the next slide, please? So this slide looks kind of busy, but what this really is an example of what our course website looks like. So this course website is broken down into materials first. So these materials, right? These are the different readings that we do in class. We provide these for you at least a week in advance so that you can read the text ahead of time, really set you up for success when we have these discussions for analyzing text, right, and actively engaging with it. So we don't just throw you into it to really make you like sink or swim. We really set you up for success. We set you up to really understand what it is we're talking about and how you can do well, both in this class and in school. You know, later in life, we take the SATs. All of this is really important for future success, right? The next part, you see the June 18th, the writing prompt. So this is the writing part of our class, right? So when we're writing, we have very specific prompts. There is a certain way that prompts are broken down, and there's a kind of a scientific way of seeing what the prompts are and how you can answer them effectively. We take these ideas and we put it into our classes. We take all of these prompts and we kind of give it to you in each type of section in the class. And we also give you feedback on how you've answered the prompt and how you can improve for next time. So the next part, June 22nd, you can see the reading discussion questions. So just like in the readings we gave you in the writing prompts, we also show you these discussion questions, right? So you can read them ahead of time. You can really understand what it is that we're looking for, what it is we're asking for, and you can prepare your own answers to do well in the class. The next part is the reading homework as well. So we do readings typically every week, not too much. I would say in a week, I wouldn't expect more than 2 hours total, right, of reading. So, but this would mean deep reading of text, understanding it, reading for understanding, reading to make sure that you have these discussion questions in mind as you read, and you can really comprehend this text fully. And the last part, the literary analysis sample essays, we again try to set you up for success. We give many sample essays, what is a really good essay, what might not be a great essay, what needs room for improvement. So as we show you these examples, you can see what teachers are talking about when they say, oh, this part might be weak, this part might be strong. Because you might have seen in a classroom, sometimes teachers write that on your papers, these comments, maybe like, oh, weak, oh, strong, oh, cite source, but you don't really understand what that means, right? In our class, we can really break this down, take our time, and we can show you what exactly these phrases, these comments mean on your essays. Um, Let's see. Oh, I see this one question. How do we turn in the work to the teacher? This is typically done again through the course website. So there are assignment drop boxes. I didn't really point that out as much, but within each assignment, there are drop boxes for you to just turn in the assignment. So it's quick, easy, really convenient. It's all in one place. So that'll be really easy for you to see the work that you've turned in and to get the feedback for it as well. So our new stage system for CRW, thank you very much, is based on grade levels. So there are 6 levels based on student grade. So we can make sure that you are going to be with other students your age, right? Again, it's broken down. So the first level is grades 2 and 3. Second level is grades 4 and 5. The next is 5 and 6, and so on and so on. Just to make sure that we're, again, all on the same page. We're all kind of learning the same things. We're all maybe even learning the same things in school, right? All of this kind of works together to have these, again, deeper discussions, these ideas, and what makes learning most effective when we're talking to people our own age and our own understandings. So within each level, there are also 4 stages, and each one is 5 weeks long. So I'll get into what that means more in particular, but each stage is broken down into a certain type of writing or a certain type of reading, right? So one stage could be poetry, one stage could be nonfiction text, one stage could be fables and folklores, one stage could even be drama, right? Plays, analyzing plays. So in this case, when we have all these stages broken down, you can always find something that you'll really like in class, right? I'm sure you'll like everything, but you'll definitely find something that is either your strength and something you see that, oh, I might not be so good at this right now, but if I can take this class with this particular stage, I can really improve my reading skills or my writing skills at this particular point, right? So one complete level, I'm on the 3rd point here, one complete level lasts 20 weeks, which is exactly 1 school semester. So as you're in school, as you're learning these things, right, in our CRW classes, it'll kind of follow the same kind of structure, right? So we're not going to ask you to do work during your breaks. We're not going to ask you to do a lot of extra work that doesn't really match up to what you're learning in school, right? What we ask you to do is really, really closely linked to what you're learning in school. So if anything, you'll probably see your results pretty quickly. You'll see what exactly it is you'll be learning and how it moves on.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Jonathan. Sorry to interrupt.
No,
yeah, thank you for the introduction. I just want to make sure like the parents and the students understand how we can present today's class. So first part, we want to introduce like the CRW classes, how we create a system, because if you are students, you want to learn something, you definitely want to know how the teacher create that, right? How it's going to help you out. So because we help so many students improve their reading and the writing. I know like writing is always a headache for most of the students. I mean, when I was a student, I feel like super scared, whenever I have to write an essay. But now with time, with, like the articles that a teacher selected from the different interesting materials, and we kind of like, create a CRW for the past like decades, right? So I would say like CRW is not the first they exist, but our critical reading and writing classes, we combine the reading and writing together because we want to make sure you read something fun and you learned, and plus you can write down something, and you will see the huge improvement with the short time. So this is part of the reason we want to create the first part to introduce you guys what is the CRW class. And for the second part, we want to show you a real class. And Jonathan actually will be the teacher for teaching the CRW class. And also we have teacher Amy and teacher Laurie. We have many amazing teachers. They all will meet you guys soon. Today we want to prepare first half introduction. The second part will be the trial lesson. But if you have any question, you can just put it here. And we want all the kids, all the students can invite their parents together to see. Because, there's like some misunderstanding between the parents and the students. Sometimes the parents say like, hey, can you read more? And the kids say like, hey, I have been reading, right? Or sometimes the parents say, hey, can you write it? What I'm gonna write? Why I need to write it? So there might be some like misunderstanding between the parents and the students. So that's why we also want to invite both the parents and the students sit down together to understand how the class designed, to understand how to help, and to understand where's the core, where's the big pan, and that's how we're gonna solve the problem. Okay. All right. So I do see some of the questions in the chat box. If you have a question, you can continue putting into it. And one of the question asked, will there be a trial lesson in the next 30 minutes or just an explanation of what a class will cover? Well, Michelle, yes, we will give you a trial lesson for you to see what the real class can look like. But we also want you to understand what each class will cover because that's very important. I don't know if you guys feel the same way. A lot of situations is like in the class or in the school. You feel like you have many classes at the same time, right? But why some of the part you can not improve and some of the subject you improve like pretty fast? There must be reason. So we believe the consistency is one of the biggest fact that we have to, put attention to. So that's why please W class level and how they designed because every stage they have a different level. We want a student to feel like improved without, working too hard because we believe study smarter, not harder, because if you keep practicing, your mistake gonna repeat. And the things that you can do right, kind of like a waste of time, right? So that's why we want to use the better strategy to help you to improve. This is part of the reason. Okay. All right. So now I want to give back to Jonathan. So Jonathan can, continue finishing, introduce the class. I think we're almost down. And we want to make sure, like, give you guys a trial lesson to see how the real critical reading and writing class works. But before that, I want everybody to type the number in the chat box. If you feel like reading is hard for you, please type 1. If it's like easy, please type 2. If you feel like the reading is really hard, okay, 1.522. I got a 1, 1, 2, 2. All right. So is there anyone love reading, like fiction, but just don't like, let's say, nonfiction reading? Type 3. If that's the case, type 3. You love fiction, but you just don't like nonfiction reading. Okay. I always got a different number. What is the 4 for? Kind of. Okay. So think about it. You feel like reading is really challenging. That's 1, right? And you really like reading, but you only like reading the fiction. You don't like the nonfiction. That's 3. So if that's describing you, that's why I want you to prepare as early as possible. Because when we help the students in their high school or in their colleges, we found like they always have those kind of hard time. Same like you guys. Well, it's because this is going to be a continuing project because no matter how old you're going to be, you always need to improve your reading and writing, right? So that's why we want to start as early as possible. And that's also the reason we started the CRW classes, stage 1, stage 2, stage 3. Yeah, because at the beginning, well, when we take care of the students for SAT, SAT, I'm trying to study all the students, like why some of students, they can get a full score in their SAT, SAT. and why some students can publish the book when they're in high school, and why some students they can write an article and the article can be published in a national journal. They become an author, and they even get paid by the article they wrote. And then I realized that because those students they spend their time earlier when they're like 10, 11-year old, like you guys, and on the reading and writing. It's trainable. It's definitely trainable. But you want to train as early as possible, because when the school get busier and when you have a lot of like other subject coming, and you don't really have time to understand the core of the reading and writing. And when you choose a class or courses and understand, like there are so many courses online, there are like so many videos on the YouTube, right? So you probably can read everything. But the thing is like, it's just a one-time thing, or it's continually give you the different stage and for you to improve step by step. So that's why we want you to, choose in a smart way. Okay. All right. I like to learn to publish a book from one of the students. Okay, great. I hope you can do it one day. Awesome. Hi, Jonathan.
Hello.
Okay,
Thank you very much for the
it's your
introduction.
time.
Thank you for letting me know that there are students in here. I really thought I thought I was presenting to a lot of parents, but yeah, but we do have
Some
a
of the
trial
kids
class.
are very independent. Yeah,
Gotcha.
so yeah, because some of the kids they just their parents busy and they're in charge of the life. So basically they are the boss. Okay.
Gotcha.
Hi, boys and girls. Yeah, so now Jonathan will present you a trial class, and we want you to understand both. So after the class, I want you to explain the first part about
Mhm.
like how we design a class to your parents. Okay, to see how you're going to illustrate about that part, and then you can feel the second part as well.
Okay. Sounds good to me. Thank you very much. Okay. So with that,
You want
I
to
will,
share your screen?
yes, I'll share my screen so I can show you what I'm looking at. Sorry, give me 1 minute. I'm gonna have to open up my presentation as well. So let me get this
Yeah, I
open.
just stopped sharing my screen and you can
Thank you
share your
very
screen.
much, Sabrina. Sorry, give me 1 minute while I figure this out here.
Edward, you want to talk? I can enable you to talk. Whoever want to talk and ask questions, you just raise your hand. There's a little function on the bottom of your Zoom, and then you can raise your hand.
Can you all see this okay? The class structure, moving on to the stage system.
Yes.
Perfect. Okay. So looking at this, just so for all these students here who are looking at it, this is a level 1 stage plan. It's for grades 2 to 3. It's broken down into 4 different stages, the sections that we're talking about, right? So the first stage is fictional prose, personal narrative writing. The second stage is fables and folklore. The third stage is nonfiction text, especially summarizing, sequencing, and explaining. And lastly, our last stage is poetry, poetics, right? So in each one, we have about a month, right? So it's roughly a month long for each stage. So not too long enough to get into these details, but not so long that it gets repetitive, right? We also have a short description of the course content, and we have an assessment tool for each stage, right? Just to show us that you really understand what you're doing. You're going to have something to show to your parents, right? You can show them a really excellent narrative writing example, right? You have a really excellent creative story or a fairy tale to write, an essay that really explains something in detail, right? So that's something that we use to kind of evaluate you, to show you, and to show your parents that you've been working and you really understand what you're talking about with your writing. For the next part, CRW level 5, right? So this is designed more for 7th to 8th graders. This is our second to last level of CRW. So you can see in this, there's a bit more here, right? But it's kind of broken down in the same way, right? But in the first stage, we can see informational text. In our second stage, right, you read this novel, right? Depending on what the teacher has decided. All the novels we've picked are really interesting, right? We've done this many times before, and the novels that we've picked have always gained student interest. Next, we also read a second part of informational texts. And lastly, we talk about Shakespeare, right? Especially the comedic elements of Shakespeare. And again, if you look down here at our final assessment tools, we have various essays that show you and show your parents that you really understood what it is that you are talking about, and you are going to move on from there. Here's a little bit more of a breakdown per week, what we're going to be doing in class. Here's our level 1 syllabus, right? So you can see content and our homework in the various stages, right? So that's a level 1. Here's our level 5 syllabus, looking pretty similar. Again, it's broken down into reading and writing, the R and the W. So once you sign up for the classes, you can see the syllabus in more detail, so you can prepare for what it is you're going to read and write about. With that, I'm going to go ahead and move into our trial class for the day. Let me pull that up for you guys. Can you see this okay? Slideshow from beginning. Can you all see my slide okay? What is poetry? I'm going to assume you can, because I'm not hearing anything else. But so what is poetry? If I have any, or can people respond to me, or can I ask them questions, or do I just read it out to them? I'm going to assume people can't respond to me. So I'm going to go ahead and just.
Yes, they can. They're in the chat box.
Oh, they're in the chat box. Unfortunately, I can't see the chat box while I'm presenting. Would you mind?
We can. Yeah.
Oh, perfect. So then, if you don't mind reading that for me, Miss June, because I can't see the chat box as I'm presenting at the same time.
Oh my God. Okay, let me find a student to help out. Okay, who want to read it? Boys and girls.
How about this? Just like you were saying, June, how about what is poetry? What do you think about when you hear the word poetry? Can you give me 1 to 3 words? What do you think about when you hear the word poetry?
Poetry is something romantic.
Romantic. I like that. For me, I think rhyming, right?
Yes.
I think, when I hear it,
like short, something short and cannot be like too long, and something. I mean, when I was 11 years old, I feel like I want to write poetry, but I can't, because I only be able to tell something like longer. But how am I going to put the less words to show the same meaning? That's something challenging for me.
Exactly. You're doing so much more with less, right? There's so many rules. That could be another word for poetry too.
Some students say has a beat. That's a good one.
A beat. Yeah. We actually have a word for that. There's a beat to it. Anything else we can see here? How about the next one? Do you like reading poetry? I don't need the why or why not. Just a yes or a no. Do you guys like reading poetry? Yes or no?
Some say no, some say yes.
Mm-hmm.
Some say no, some say yes.
Okay. I tend to get more no's actually when I hear when I hear do you like reading poetry? And I think a big part of that is how poetry is presented, right, in schools. It's kind of like another assignment to do. It's really broken down. You don't get to see the fun parts of it. I like what June was talking about. There's a beat to it. It's fun to listen to, right? When you can really read poetry with these ideas in your head, it can be a lot more fun, right? Following these rules can be something more interesting to you. And lastly, the difference between poetry and prose. Can you give me 1 to 3 words as well? This might be for the older students too. I would say you have to be at least 6th grade to really understand. What's the difference between poetry and prose? Have you heard these 2 words before? What do we think? Are we getting any ideas?
What is the prose? Someone asked. Sophia, yeah. Sophia is in the 5th grade, and she's asking, what is prose?
Oh, what is prose? All right. So how about this? How about prose is more just like the classic kind of reading that you do. It's like novel reading, right? Or it's more like, short stories, novels, essays, right? So now that I've told you that, what's the difference between poetry and prose? Now that I've told you prose is more like classic novel reading, it's more essay reading.
It's like a shorter but non-rhyming.
Interesting. All right. Are you saying poetry is shorter and can rhyme or not rhyme? That's true. That's a very good point.
Okay. Or maybe it's like longer or has more weight.
Longer, right? Generally. So I don't know if you guys have heard of like the Iliad or like the Odyssey. Those are considered poems, right? And they're long. They're long like novels, and you read them like novels. So that's another interesting idea. Yeah.
Ian have a really good answer. Say
Mhm.
prose is like longer, poem is like shorter.
Longer and shorter, right? That's a really quick way. You take a look at it. Thank you, Ian. Yeah, you see it, right? You can see the difference right away. Thank you. With that, I'll try to move on from there. So let's talk about these differences between prose and poetry, right? You've probably seen this diagram before. It's called a Venn diagram. It tells you what's different and what's the same between these two things. So some of the similarities that we've seen between prose and poetry, the first thing, right, obvious, they both use words, right? You're both conveying a message using words. They both use literary devices as well, right? This could be metaphor, simile, right? She was as beautiful as a rose, or he was as strong as a horse, right? So using these literary devices, you compare something, right? Or you say something is like something else to convey a message, right? To prove a point. Lastly, or sorry, third, imagery. They both use sensory language. They both describe something to you, right? Oh, I see somebody raised a hand. Oh, I can sort of see in Zoom. Oh, okay, hang on. Maybe I can see the responses to this.
Can you go into the full screen?
Oh, are you seeing the black screen, not the full screen?
No, I just see like next slides as well. So I can you just share the whole screen?
I'm trying to display settings. Is that better?
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
Oh, okay, okay. Sorry about that. Okay. Um, and sensory language. Let's see in the chat. Oh man, I can't pull up the chat, unfortunately. All right. Poetry. They both tell a story, right? They're both trying to tell you something that's going on, right? To describe something, to say something. Um, next, let me see. Right, uses certain kinds of phrases that you're probably more familiar with, right? The narrator. When you read Charlie and the Chocolate Factory, that's a third person narrator. Someone like a god, right, is describing what's happening, things that are happening somewhere else, right? So if you're looking at Charlie, doesn't always know what's going on, right? Violet doesn't always know what's going on, but the narrator can always describe something that's going on. Prose also is broken down into sentences, right? Sentences contain an idea, like one single idea, right? Paragraphs are composed of many sentences, right? They tell a larger point. It uses normal language for prose, right? So it's kind of, sometimes it might be how you talk, sometimes it might be academic, but this is the language that you hear every day, either at school or at home. Prose also does not rhyme generally. It doesn't have to. I mean, it might occasionally rhyme, but there's no rules to it. And no meter, right? Meters is kind of like the lines that are per stanza, right? There's a certain type of right? That's kind of the way you can describe it, right? It doesn't follow like that beat someone was talking about, and that kind of goes into the rhythm as well, right? Poetry tends to follow this rhythm, this idea, this way of speaking that's not natural. You might have heard it in like beat poetry if you've ever been there, where someone hits like the congos, right? And they speak a certain way, right? That's kind of so for for poetry, you can kind of relate all of these things to prose, right? When you hear a narrator, there's a speaker in poetry, right? There's someone trying to say something, right? Typically, that's the writer, the author, somebody, the person who wrote the poem. That person is the one who's speaking, right? And instead of sentences and paragraphs, you have lines and stanzas. Again, this is just this how it's broken down, so you can see ideas in different spots, right? It just makes the writing make sense to you. And instead of normal language, it's poetry is using something called heightened language. This kind of heightened language is again more romantic. I think I heard ideas. It tries to compare things to other things in a way to make them sound flowery, sound nice. Or maybe it tries to do the opposite, right? It tries to make something sound very scary, maybe like an Edgar Allan Poe poem compared to an Emily Dickinson poem, right? So they use language in again, we call it a heightened way or a more dramatic way to prove a point. Again, poetry, it may rhyme at times, it may follow a rhythm at times, and it may have a meter at times. But that it always has a rhythm, but it may follow a meter at times, but not always. So with that, we can kind of look at what is the difference, right, between prose and poetry. So just looking at this, how do these look different? So just taking a quick look without even reading it. Can I see in the text? How do these look different? I wonder if I can see the chat now. Is a haiku a poem? Can I? Oh, I can kind of see. Oh, question and answer. Oh, if you type into the question and answer, I can see that more clearly. Someone's asking, is a haiku a poem? Yes, a haiku follows a certain meter, right? It follows the different types of rules that a poem might follow, right? So it could go 3-5-3, right, or 5-7-5 syllables. With that, let me try to pull up. Let's start. How come I cannot see this chat? Give me 1 minute here, guys. Maybe I can move this over here. No? Dang, how come I can't see the chats here? Anyway, so looking at this, you might be able to see the difference between prose and poetry in that prose has kind of like this blockier text, right? It looks more like a big block of words together that is, again, broken down in sentences, and this is all within a paragraph, but this may not be kind of this flowery language that we might see in a poem, right? The shorter, let me switch these. Thank you. So moving on from there, when you are looking, oh, now I can see. Prose is like a story. Poetry is trying to describe something. Oh, prose is paragraphs and poetry has stanzas. Thank you. These are stanzas in poetry and the prose is just a paragraph. Oh, nice. All right. Thank you very much. Okay. Looking at that, what we can see is in the poem, I think I can read out this poem to you because it's pretty short. It's, again, Emily Dickinson. The morns are meeker than they were. The nuts are getting brown. The berry's cheek is plumper. The rose is out of town. The maple wears a gayer scarf. The field a scarlet gown. Lest I should be old-fashioned, I'll put a trinket on. Right. Again, this poem goes with the different beats, right? So somebody was saying earlier, it follows the 4 beats, 3 beats, 3 beats repeat, right? The morns are meeker than they were, right? 4, 3 beats again, the nuts are getting brown. And then it goes 3 beats, and then it repeats again, right? And then the rhyme scheme as well. It rhymes in A, B, C, A, D, E, A. So the A, right? Were, and then it goes to brown, then plumper, right? And then it goes to town. So this rhyme scheme, it follows these rules when we're talking about writing poetry. So next.
From maybe a student, who the student asked, what is a stanzas?
What's a stanza?
Yeah.
Nice. Well, thank you very much. So a stanza, what is a stanza? Oh, thank you. Now I can see the questions and answers. So a stanza is kind of compared to a paragraph. So what we can see here, the prose section is 1 paragraph, and the poetry section is also 1 stanza. So you can compare a stanza to a paragraph in the sense that it has kind of the idea contained within several lines. I hope that makes sense to you. Again, this is just a trial class. We definitely go into more details about what exactly how they're broken down, and the kind of the ideas within each stanza and what they look like. But again, for this class, you can say stanza is kind of like the poetry version of a paragraph. Okay, moving on to the next one, so I can show you. Structure. What is structure? So every work of literature, art, composition, film, etc., has a structure to it. It's the structure of a piece of prose is not as obvious as that of poetry, but has an underlying structure that is not so visible, right? So it may be like you could think of a song, right? It has a structure to it. It has a verse, it has the hook, it has the chorus, it goes back to a verse. And every song has a point, right? It could be a love song, it could be an angry song, it could be a sad song, a happy song. Whatever that song is, there's trying to convey a message to you. They're trying to tell you something. And the same thing with writing. Maybe somebody's trying to persuade you of something. Maybe somebody's trying to make you happy. Maybe they're trying to make you sad, trying to make you think about something that's going on in your life. So when you're thinking about the structure of something, yeah, I see like an angry song, like death metal, right? I mean, I don't know if they're all angry, but some of them can be, right, for sure. Kind of showing maybe somebody doesn't understand you. Maybe your friend didn't invite you to their birthday party, right? And you're upset. You write a song about it, right? Okay. The structure of a work of prose is broken down into sentences and paragraphs, while the structure of a poem is broken down into lines and stanzas. Again, the structure in anything, right? As when a piece of writing or a piece of poetry, it all has a structure. And once we learn to read that structure, that's what kind of brings us to really better understanding. So I can see one person has said, am I the only one who hates poetry? I would venture to guess no. In fact, when up until maybe like 4th or 5th grade, I wouldn't say I hated poetry, but it's not something I particularly liked, right? When the teacher said, take out your books, you're reading poetry today, I wouldn't groan out loud, but I'd be someone, oh, okay, all right, this is something we're doing today. We're gonna read poems, right? We're gonna read poems today. But what really clicked for me with poetry was learning to read it, right? Learning to see it. As at times when you're watching a movie and you might think it's boring, or you're reading something and it might be boring, a lot of times it's because we don't really have that kind of idea of how to see it yet. We don't see the nuances yet, right? Well, I don't know if a lot of you play like Fortnite, right? But once you when you first get into it, you say, oh, this game is too hard. This game is not fun. Like I jump in and I'm dead in 10 minutes, right? But it's just because you don't really understand how to play it yet, right? You have to get into it. It takes a little bit of work to really get in there. And once you really are getting into it, you basically can't stop, right? I know I can't, right? Not for kids, it's for adults. Well, I say it's for kids and adults, right? But this is just an example, right? It takes time to really understand something, to get good at something. And once you do, right? Once you do get into it, it becomes a lot more fun. It becomes something that you really want to do all the time, right? So moving on to that. These are the various stanzas again, something for the person who was asking like what exactly is a stanza. These are different sections of the same poem, right? 1, 2, 3, 4. I'm not going to read them out to you, but if you think about it, right, the first part is talking about coming up in the frozen woods. The second part is how he feels, right, what he sees. This third part again is his woods, I think, his house in below. You don't see me stopping here. This is kind of furthering the story, right? He's talking about this house that he sees. He's talking about how the woods are making him feel. And lastly, the fourth stanza, but he's talking about his horse. He's moving forward, and again, this idea, these 4 different ideas are broken down, right? With that, moving on to the next section. When they're broken down, you can see how these can be kind of put into various order, but as you put them together, they kind of create this meaning, right? But next, poetic meter. What is poetic meter? It's like almost like that beat. It's the rhythmic sound of poetry. it sounds good to your ear. It sounds pleasing. It sounds like rapping, right? It sounds really clear to us. It's pleasing to the ear. Okay. Question: why do both poems and prose need a structure? In fact, any piece of medium, right, needs a structure, because otherwise, even if it sounds like chaos, if you look at a Picasso painting, right, or a Jackson Pollock painting, it kind of looks like things are all over the place. But even then, when something, it takes a lot of structure to form chaos, right? It takes a lot of structure to make something that has a clear purpose. So otherwise, if you're not looking, if you're writing something without this structure to it, without this idea to it, you're kind of, there's no point in the writing, right? Because you're not conveying a message, you're not conveying a point. The next part, how much time do I have, by the way? I feel like I've already gone over the 4 o'clock. So I'm trying to kind of speed through this because I did the introduction. Do we need more time? Or do you need time to present to everybody?
Yeah. Actually, there's one question from the
Yeah.
audience. It's from Enhao Ren. And he asked, why do both poems and the prose need a structure?
Yeah, okay. And I was just talking about that earlier, right? In fact, everything needs a structure, right? A song needs a structure, a game needs a structure. Every piece of writing is trying to either convey a meaning. It's to make you feel something. It's to make you think about something. It's to make it's to get to this point of whatever the author wants to do. If you just did something for no reason, I would almost argue it's impossible to do something for no reason, right? Sometimes your parents might say, "Oh, why are you playing video games all day?" Right? Well, that's what they tell me when I used to, right? There's a reason to it. I'm trying to make myself happy. I'm trying to improve at something. I'm trying to get better at something. There's a structure. There's a reason for everything happening, right? So with that, I'm sorry if I went a little overtime for you guys. I know you're busy sharing now, and I'll kind of give you time to answer any other questions. If we're okay there. Let's see, no open questions in the chat. Okay, I see somebody has to go. Someone's on summer break, so you guys can stay as long as you want if you have any questions. Again, I apologize. I thought I was presenting to your parents, so I did kind of have a longer explanation of CRW. But I hope that the little part of class that I did show you was interesting enough. It showed you one part of one class, and I did kind of speed through it a little bit. Just know that we do take time, and we do get you to understand. And again, this is a huge group of students, and our smaller groups are maybe 15 at most. We have time to stop and really reflect and talk about what exactly it was that that was contained in the poem. Okay.
Okay, student asked, when the class will start?
When do the classes start? They our first round of CRW classes are all starting around January 15th, about 2 weeks from now. Some are a day or two after that. But if you go on our course website, you can see exactly when the start date is for the class that's within your grade level. You guys have that link to send them? If not, again, this is our kind of Q&A session. I hope I hope the class was enough to show you a little taste of what we're learning. And thank you very much. I appreciate all of you attending today.
So if you're interested in our CRW classes, or if you have any question about the CRW classes, how to sign up, and more questions about the content area, please contact us at info@7edu.org.
And one last thing before everyone leaves, 7EDU does have another event coming up in January. This event is called How to Develop Good Habits for Children. So it's really targeted towards any of the parents on the call. We have 2 sessions on January 9th and January 16th to share with you the best child development strategies. So we'll be going over topics like how to discipline your children, how to have open communication with your children, and how to prepare them for school. And so if you're interested, I'm going to send the registration link for these free events in the chat right now. Again, it's one event, but there are 2 different sessions. So make sure everyone signs up for this event. And then other than that, again, if you guys have any questions, make sure to contact us at info@7edu.org. But other than that, we will see you guys at our next events in January. Thank you all so much for coming today. Thank you, Jonathan, as well.
Thank you all very much. Have a wonderful day. Have a wonderful break if you're still on it. And bye-bye now.